Welcome to the First Things First podcast. And first things first, we need you to subscribe and leave comments letting us know what you think of the show. We're listening. I'm Nick Wright, joined by two of my favorite people, Jenna Wolfe, Cris Carter. Now, let's get the show started.
Well, hey, everyone, and welcome to First Things First. I'm Jenna Wolfe. As always, that's the Hall of Famer, Cris Carter. This right here is Nick Wright. Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Ton to do today.
Got a lot to do. We only have 3 hours to do it.
But we're 2 days away from what I've always liked to call the best weekend in sports. There was big NBA last night. We got a lot to do today, this morning, CC. Jenna?
Jenna, you look very nice.
Thank you very much, as do the two of you. Let's start this show right here.
Jenna, you look good.
Always
Hey, guys, wouldn't it be great if everyone in life got a bye week at some point? You know, just to rest up, go over life's game plan, reap the rewards of a good winter season.
Yeah,
well,
drink some bone broth.
Yeah, we all need some bone broth every once in a while. We don't all have byes, but the Patriots do and did, and they rested, and now they get ready for the Titans. And while Tom Brady did struggle in the month of December, he's still the man. But Titans safety Kevin Byard says he's out to embarrass Brady Saturday night. Take a listen to this.
It's a playoff game, so it's not like it's a preseason where I go out there and be like, oh, it's Brady and I'm chilling. Yeah. It's a playoff game, so I don't really care, you know what I'm saying, if it was Joe Montana, you know what I'm saying? I'm trying to go out there and win the game, and I want to make him look like Blake Bortles if I can, try to catch a couple picks.
I'm actually not sure if that was more insulting to Blake Bortles or to Tom Brady.
Oh, it was definitely more insulting to Blake Bortles. It was complimentary to Tom Brady. Bortles just gets crushed
at every turn. Poor guy's at home eating breakfast. He's like, what did I do?
Right, it's unbelievable.
All right, well, let's start with this. So, obviously, the Titans, their number one game plan is going to be trying to slow down Tom Brady. As sometimes you see the offense goes through him. What can they do? What will they have to do in order to make that happen, CC?
Well, for Nick and I, we were going over it this morning, and I think it's critical to let the American public, Kevin Byard, who is he?
Well, so he's a guy, my guess is a lot of people don't know who he is. He's the best player on the Titans defense.
Yes.
Second-year player out of mid-Tennessee State, mid-round pick, but he led the NFL in interceptions this year, and he's a first-team All-Pro. And one note on that, CC and I will often make distinctions between Pro Bowlers, which sometimes is based on reputation.
Popularity.
Or
also
just,
with him being a middle rounder, not having a big name and playing on Tennessee, that he's not going to get in the Pro Bowl after his first great season.
But the voters on first team, the All-Pro team is the more prestigious team.
Yes.
First team All-Pro means you were, for this year, the best in the world at your position. That's who Kevin Byard was this year.
He is a very good player, but he's also very young and inexperienced. And when you're playing against great players, my philosophy was, when I was playing against Rod Woodson, Deion Sanders, Aeneas Williams, all these guys, Charles Woodson, Darrell Green, all these guys, Hall of Famers or potential Hall of Famers, I want to leave the game with a stalemate. I want to leave to say, you know something? I drew him to a draw, all right? I'm not going to let him dominate me. I'm not going to dominate him. And that's not even my goal. When you're playing against great players, that's a more realistic goal. Because if you think, I'm just going to dominate this guy, well, you could have a long day. So he is a credible player. Now, as far as his commentary and what's going on, I'm just going to reveal to the fans what he actually might be seeing. Because he said he's going to make Tom Brady look like Blake Bortles. I'm going to show the fans a couple pair of stats, a blind reveal.
Okay.
I'm on Nick Wright's corner here. You can see one quarterback 60%, one other quarterback 62%. Let's reveal to the fans like who these guys really are. Nick, he talking about he going to make him look like Blake Bortles. Well, Blake Bortles would be better than his own quarterback.
Wow.
So, like your mom told you, Jenna, never point your finger at someone because you got 4 fingers pointing back at you. Hey, Byard, be chill, bro. be careful because the quarterback that you have playing for you, it helped me look at his numbers and probably lean me toward criticizing Mariota because his quarterback play has been worse than Bortles.
Well, so that's really interesting because you know how much I love those blind stat tests.
And I did that one from
it's a great move. I wouldn't have guessed like those were the two guys going up there. I knew one of them was probably going to be Bortles given the conversation. That is a good visual as far as how mediocre to bad the Titans quarterback situation has been, which, to bring it back to this, is why you have to make Tom Brady play poorly to have any chance in this football game. Jenna, you mentioned we would all like to have a bye. You know what's funny? If you were drafted by the New England Patriots in 2011 or later, you have always had a bye. And you
don't
have,
know any different.
And you have always played in the AFC Championship game. Every player on this team, 2011 or later, they've had byes every year. They've been in the AFC Championship every year. An unprecedented 6 straight. Now they're going for 7 straight. I think a lot of people are going to say, well, they basically have a bye to the AFC Championship game. They drew the Titans. That's what people thought last year when they drew the Houston Texans. That's a game we watched together back in Los Angeles, back before I actually had even met you, Jenna. This was a time where, if you remember that football game, that was a close game at the half. Now, the Patriots ended up blowing out the Texans. It was a close game at the half. The Patriots were only up 17-13, and that was with a kick return touchdown. Why do I bring that up? That's the way the Titans need to make Brady look and feel. He was 18 of 38 in that game. He threw 2 interceptions, and why? Jadeveon Clowney was getting constant pressure on the quarterback. The Titans are not a great defense, but they are top 5 in the NFL in sacks.
Yes.
The only shot they have is to get constant pressure on Tom Brady, and Dick LeBeau, their D coordinator, who hasn't had a lot of success against Brady, he's going to bring pressure repeatedly.
Great point. And also, Dick LeBeau is very responsible for Kevin Bayard and his ability to be one of the elite players. He loves great safeties who are versatile, can play in coverage, can also play down in the box. But the point you mentioned, I think, might be the most important. After the bye, people need to look back at Tom Brady and see he's been very successful against Dick LeBeau when he was in Pittsburgh. When Pittsburgh had a better offense and Pittsburgh had better personnel than Dick LeBeau has there in Tennessee. They haven't created enough turnovers for that defense to be in the elite category, and that's what they're going to have to do to be able to make Tom Brady look bad.
Just so Brady against Dick LeBeau's Pittsburgh defenses from 04 to 14 was 6-2, 19 touchdowns, and this is the key. Only 3 interceptions. The way the Dick LeBeau defense works is you bring the pressure, it forces turnovers.
Yes.
It didn't work like that against Brady.
Clearly the pressure's on the Titans defense. They know what they have to do. They got to stop Tom Brady. That's the Patriots' biggest offensive weapon far and away. But I have to ask you as a player, going back to these guys making these sort of flamboyant comments, knowing full well they're going to get blown up, knowing full well they're going to go national, and then the person who's intent to hear him is probably going to hear him whether or not Tom Brady heard these comments or not. How does it behoove a guy like Bayard to make a comment like that? Do they need extra motivation? Do they need something to get him pumped up?
Jenna, you might be surprised by this, but a lot of these young players, I mean, they're brash. They've already made big splashes in the NFL. And if they haven't made a big splash, it's like Denny Green said. If you got a reputation, this is the kind of game that you protect your reputation. And if you don't have a reputation, this is the kind of game that you gain a reputation on the national stage. So in the NFL for years, especially defensively, you have a lot of brash, young, and Bayard. Tom's won 1 Super Bowl to him. Right. Now, he mentioned Tom and Joe Montana. They don't know what they don't know. So we see this more often, especially in football.
Does Tom Brady even hear a comment? Like, does this even get to a guy like Tom Brady?
According to CC, like Tom Brady's going to get a packet that's going to have the clippings in it. But
watch if he throws a touchdown. Watch Tom run to the end zone, and he'll be side-eyeing him.
There's a famous.
That's what he'll be doing.
Brady, you can almost say, ended one of my college friends' careers. Do you remember the safety Anthony Smith? He was on the Pittsburgh Steelers, on a Dick LeBeau defense, the undefeated season for the Patriots. And going into the game, Anthony Smith talked a little trash on Brady. The Patriots ran a flea flicker designed to pick on Anthony Smith.
Yes.
It worked. They scored a touchdown. Brady ran straight to him and went jaw to jaw with him.
Yes.
So yes, Brady.
What year was this?
07. This was the undefeated Pats during the regular season. Now, but CC's point about Tom Brady's only won 1 Super Bowl to Kevin Bayard, it reminds me of one of our favorite players on the show, Jalen Ramsey. Like, these guys have been so successful their entire careers. They have both been drafted by teams that don't have a lot of success, and they probably look at, hey, guess when my team got good? When they got me. Like, guess what? Like, you guys think it's the Patriots versus the same old Titans, or you guys think we're the same old Jags. We're not the same old Jags. No. Because I'm here now. And so, I mean, that is, and I think CC's also right, that the defensive players, like
Like, you pick one offensive player in this league that you don't want to trash talk, who when he gets mad,
It's
upset, and mean, it's Blake Bortles. God, you said it just
Right, it's just like first things first.
Yeah.
We didn't get good until you guys got here.
Hey, guys, welcome back. Look who's here. Coach Eric Mangini.
Good to see you.
How are
Put
you?
your glasses on, Coach.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Deny.
I don't know what you're talking
Your
about.
face looked like your son on the Christmas card. I didn't do anything. Yes.
Yeah.
All right, I could use a pair of glasses. Anyway, more playoff football to talk about this weekend. Steelers and Jaguars in a much-anticipated rematch. First time they played, Steelers were the favorites, but the Jags were the winners. Crushed them, 30-9. Big Ben threw 5 picks and then hinted at retiring. Seems a little dramatic, but who am I to say? Fast forward 14 weeks, Steelers favored again. This time, Roethlisberger, who didn't retire, said he wants another shot at the Jaguars. And Jacksonville cornerback Jalen Ramsey says he understands where Ben is coming from.
I would want to play us again, too. I mean, he threw 5 picks, was contemplating retiring, whether he had it or not, after playing us. So, he, they had a good season after our game. I would want to play us again, too. But at the same time, sometimes you got to be careful what you ask for. So, we'll see Big Ben and the Steelers on Sunday, and we'll see what they have to say.
A lot of this throwing around the be careful what you wish for kind of thing. But, all right, Coach, this is a really good matchup between the Jaguars defense and this Steelers offense. Who has the better unit? Sorry.
I'd say the Steelers, to me, have the better unit. What happened last time is an aberration. And the idea that Ben's going to throw 5 picks, 2 of them going back for touchdowns, that's not going to happen again. And as much as Jalen Ramsey's warning Big Ben to be careful what you wish for,
Right.
to some degree, you also need to be careful for what you wish for, because they can hurt you in the passing game. With Antonio Brown, depending on where he is, he's so hard to deal with. And then when you push coverage to him, that opens up stuff outside from Artavius Bryant. And then you've got an elite player at the running back position. So with Le'Veon Bell, where are you going to push your resources? Who are you going to stop? Big Ben has the ability to extend plays. His extended plays end up usually as big plays. Now, what I really like about Jacksonville is the way that they've been able to combine these free agents that they brought in.
Yeah.
The effect of Calais Campbell, Barry Church, A.J. Bouye, combined with the young players that they picked up in the draft last year. That's really hard to do. That's hard to bring guys into a locker room and have them have a meaningful impact on the rest of the group. And it's probably because they had the young players and that mix between the two that's making it work as well as it is.
Just a quick follow-up. They do have the great defense. You're saying it. They're inexperienced, a couple of those players on the defense. And how much of a disadvantage is that going to pose for the Steelers offense to take advantage of that?
Well, they do have the experience factor going in, or the inexperience factor going into it. But it's nice for them to have those veteran players like a Barry Church and a Calais Campbell.
Yeah.
Calais is a guy that can single-handedly ruin the game. And sometimes it doesn't always show up in terms of tackles for loss or sacks, although he's been very productive there. He blows up blocking schemes. He opens up things for other guys. You got to know where he is, so you've got to handle him, and that's a difficult thing from an offensive coordinator perspective, always accounting for him, because then your plays have to build off of that as opposed to your traditional scheme.
All right, so a few things. One is you mentioned A.J. Bouye, and I just want to give the Jags front office credit because this is a guy who was an undrafted player. Yes. I was in Houston when he was his first year there, and with 2 weeks left in the preseason, he was about the 55th guy for the 53-man roster. So, like, he was a fringe guy who then got pushed into the starting lineup last year, played really well. But I think there was a lot of concern about whether or not that was a one-year aberration, whether or not he is going to be worth the type of money he went out and got. The Jags didn't pick he or Calais. They picked them both. They've both been excellent. You mentioned Barry Church. Like, one of the reasons Jalen can be so good is because the other corner has been excellent as well. Like, I think that's really important to note. Go ahead, CC.
I think that Jalen would be good on any team. I mean, I believe he's one of the most talented DBs. He's Richard Sherman with speed. He's a better athlete than Richard Sherman. Very seldom are we going to see a guy that has that type of height, that type of length, because typically the higher your hip joint is off the ground as a DB, the harder it is to change direction. So Richard Sherman, if you're like, okay, what's his weakness? That's his change direction and his overall speed. Jalen, what's his weakness? He doesn't have a weakness, and we just don't see that combination of size, speed, and being able to play man-to-man as much as he's able to play man-to-man.
I thoroughly agree with you. The point that I was trying to make, and maybe I made it awkwardly, was
now, AJ was what makes that defense special when you add another rusher, you bring in Calais, who presents problems, and not only in the run game, but he gave you 14.5 sacks, a career high.
Well, and so the reason I brought up Boyer was because a corner as good as Jalen, typically teams will just stay away from him. Like Marcus Peters is not as good as Jalen, but I've watched the Chiefs very closely the last few years, and teams just.
Marcus Peters is pretty good.
No, I think he's excellent. I don't think he's quite. I think Jalen might be the best in the league. Regardless, say they're on equal footing. Teams just try to stay away from Marcus Peters. They go to the other side of the field because they don't have a complementary corner on the other side to where they can kind of pick their poison. The point, though, is we talk about the Jags. Le'Veon Bell had an interesting comment yesterday where he said, we don't know how long this Steelers unit's going to be together. And the Steelers unit of Antonio Brown, Big Ben, Le'Veon Bell, forget Martavis and Juju, they haven't had many playoff runs of full health, right? That Le'Veon last year in the playoffs, he got knocked out very early in the New England game. Le'Veon missed a different New England game. We had seen Martavis suspended for a year. This is the Steelers' best opportunity. Like, running backs don't last super long. Le'Veon's not on an extended contract. We just saw Antonio Brown take a huge hit in the Bengals game that he popped up from, but the style he plays, he's always susceptible. And Ben, as we mentioned, was talking retirement, even if it was facetious, when they played. So this is a golden opportunity for the Steelers, this playoff run. The Jags defense, though, to me, does present more problems than any defense in football.
It is hard to keep three superstars on the same team with the salary cap. I would say the other advantage that Jacksonville's defense has is the time of possession that Jacksonville's offense has been able to maintain. They're third in the league. So the best thing that they can do, and we'll talk about this some more later, is keep that offense off the field. So the more that they can chew up time and run out the clock or shorten the clock, to me, that keeps an explosive offense off the field as well.
Yes, we talked about these units. Pittsburgh's offense, Jacksonville's defense, and both of them start out with great personnel. But Leonard Fournette, I know he's not on Jacksonville's D. He has the ability to be able to turn the tide. That Jacksonville's defense would have the better unit if he's able to grind it out in which I believe is going to be a sloppy field, potentially rain. So that one of those things, there's other things that we have to look for to be able to help out one of these units. And I believe Fournette does that for Jacksonville's defense.
Welcome back to First Things First. Super Bowl champ Cris Canny is with us.
In the building.
You, how are you?
I'm good. Good to see you. Like that blazer, man.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Getting ready for
Whatever.
You on board with the CC?
Man, we're good, man. I compliment the dude all day, man.
Okay.
Make yourself at home. My guest.
There it is.
I like it. Cris Canny, let's talk about Case Keenum, who makes his first playoff start this Sunday against the New Orleans Saints after looking over his shoulder all season long, and let's face it, probably both shoulders, a couple other body parts. Keenum managed to keep the job over Vikings fan favorite Teddy Bridgewater. Friend of the show, Adam Thielen, says he's expecting big things from his quarterback.
We know that he's prepared. We know he's going to get us in the right plays, and we know he's going to find the right guy, the open guy. So it gives us as receivers a lot of confidence to go out there and just try to win.
All right, Cris. What should we expect from Case Keenum in his first playoff game? Because I felt like for the last, let's call it 13 games of the season, we kept saying, what do we expect from Case Keenum this week and this week and this week? Well, now the guy got the team to the playoffs, or the team got the guy to the playoffs. And Case Keenum, here he is. What do you expect from him?
Well, if you look at the numbers in the head-to-head matchup between Case Keenum and Drew Brees,
What's your numbers say,
total
big
QBR,
fella?
I mean, Case Keenum has the better numbers with total QBR. If you look at it in situations.
Man, we should have had you on a blind reveal.
Listen, against the blitz, outside of the pocket and play action, you name it, Case Keenum's numbers are better than Drew Brees.
Love Cris
But
Keenum.
I'm not going to sit here and ignore the fact that Case Keenum doesn't have any playoff starts. CC, you know this time of year, experience matters. And we saw that play out in that Rams-Falcons matchup, not only from the player perspective, but the coaching perspective. Experience matters in terms of not making the critical errors. I know Case Keenum has taken care of the football in large part this season, only 7 interceptions. He had 20 touchdowns. He's performed very well in terms of the situation that he had to step into. But when I'm looking at this matchup, I can't ignore the fact that Drew Brees has a decided advantage in terms of playoff starts. He's got a better offensive line, even though they're going to be down Andrews Pete. He's got a better running game than Case Keenum has. And when you look at the defenses in terms of scoring, they're pretty much evenly matched. So I'm looking at this to be a close ball game. And in a close ball game, I think experience matters, situational football, third down, red zone. I got to give the edge to Drew Brees.
I do not think there's a path to victory for the Vikings that does not include Case Keenum playing great. I don't think they can win this game the way they've won a lot of games this year, which is amazing defense, great running game, don't kill us quarterback. Like, Case played better than that, as you mentioned. Like, Case, since week 11, second-ranked passer in the league, 11 touchdowns, 2 picks. He's played really well, but they haven't needed that most of those games. They've been. I don't think they can beat the Saints off the strength of just this awesome defense and the running game. I think Case is going to have to play a really good football game. I don't think he has to go touch for touch with Drew Brees, but he's got to be within reaching distance of what Drew Brees does. And that is, it's a lot to ask of anyone, much less a guy who started this year as their second-string quarterback.
Yeah, this is no blind reveal, but let's just play this little game. Let's imagine Cam Newton last week in New Orleans. Imagine he had the skilled players. I'm talking about all of them. The Vikings running backs, the Vikings wide receivers. The tight ends are interchangeable, you know, because they're about the same ability. Right. Both of them been hurt, both of them, but Rudolph is coming back from a week bye. So he's going to be moving a little bit faster.
Vikings offensive line.
Yeah, so which group would you rather have? And do you think New Orleans would be playing this week if he had the same group?
No, I don't.
Because you mentioned
I think
Thielen.
Carolina would have won. If Cam had the Vikings' offensive weapons, is what you're saying, would Carolina have won that football game? I think they would.
Right. So not only did the Vikings change their 5 starting offensive linemen from last year, 4 new starters, all 5 new positional starters, but also their skilled guys don't get enough credit. Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen, they have gotten it done for the Vikings. You're talking about contested throws, tight throws. They're one of the best in the NFL as far as making those type of plays. So you don't look at them as down the field, big play wide receivers, but they've been able to do it, and they've been able to help Case out. Case has the benefit of playing at home, sleeping in the hotel right downtown. The crowd noise, it's going to be incredible. My daughter works for the Vikings. They have sold out everything in Minnesota. At the Timberwolves game last night, people like the Timberwolves, but that's a Vikings town. And they know that they could be the first team ever that the first weekend in February, they could be playing a home game that happens to be the Super Bowl. And I believe that will be the impetus, because this could be the Vikings' last home game. Philadelphia has the #1 seed. Unless they lose. Vikings fans know that, and it's always been a huge advantage in Minnesota. Now, some people say the noise is manufactured noise.
I don't, because y'all pipe it in.
I don't know. It's my job to play on the field.
Is that Monterey's job? Is she the one that pipes in
No, she's a part of the foundation and everything.
What does that even? So we hear so much about crowd noise, and besides the obvious, like throwing off snap counts and whatnot, what does crowd noise do to the opposition?
It doesn't let you think. It makes teams have to hurry up. And in sports, there's so much to communication that you have to do. And when you negate the communication, or you make a team a little antsy, and you have playoff anxiety, all right? The crowd noise increases that anxiety, because instead of, what coverage are we in, Chris? You're always yelling.
You are already stressing me out.
No, you're always
stressed out, Chris Candy. I'm stressed out.
You're always yelling. And you know, man, if we don't get the lead, man, this crowd's going to get in the game. So not only are you fighting the opposition, you know that the crowd is a part of it.
Especially when you have a veteran quarterback that has the autonomy that Drew Brees does, when Sean Payton gives him the latitude to be able to make those checks at the line of scrimmage. When that crowd noise gets going and you got second and long,
and
third
it's a
and long,
smart crowd. They know if you're audible, they start getting louder.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the one thing you do worry about with the New Orleans Saints in terms of being able to communicate. That's why you have to have an emphasis on nonverbal communication and the coaching staff wanting to go indoors and pipe in the music to force your offense to get used to that type of environment. But you can't simulate that, and you can't simulate playoff football. You can't simulate that type of atmosphere. The one thing I will say is that's why I give Drew Brees the advantage. Case Keenum has never seen playoff football before as a starter.
So here's what's interesting. Case Keenum has never seen playoff football. But Case Keenum's in a very interesting spot because he might have been having individually playoff games the better part of the last 2 months. Since Teddy Bridgewater came back, since we had people telling Chris Carter, short leash on Case, he's playing great, but this is, you don't know how, you know, Teddy's right there. Since everyone saw the support Teddy has and that Teddy was healthy enough to play, Case was playing for his job. Week 12, 13, 14. He didn't really secure it until week 15, the game against Cincinnati where they won 34-7. Does that apply at all? Like, does it can, in your opinion, even though it's not playoff experience, it's maybe a close simulation of it for him individually, the pressure he's going to be under in this game?
I don't think so because the Minnesota Vikings pretty much wrapped up their division early in December. So, I mean, I understand what you're saying in terms of playing for his job, but you could play that game with the New Orleans Saints because they were fighting for the last 3 weeks to make sure that they were able to host a home playoff game.
Yes.
So their whole team had that sense of urgency.
But we're not worried. But it's not like Brees needed the experience, though, is my point. Like, Case, this was the only way Case could have gotten anything close to that experience. And maybe it doesn't apply because it's not a lose-and-go-home scenario. Just for him individually, I wonder if having a ton of pressure on him going into a game, if he learned something from the last 2 months of the year.
Yeah, something that might create more pressure. The last 2 weeks, the Vikings are on the bye. Sam Bradford, he's practicing with the Vikings. So I don't believe it's pressure. I believe it will help because in the first game of the season, Sam Bradford played unreal. And I believe there will be information that Sam can transfer the Case that will be beneficial in the game.
Wouldn't that be something if the whole season we talked about Case Keenum losing his job to Teddy, and now it's going to be maybe Case Keenum loses his job to Sam Bradford, who lost his job to Keenum, who lost his job.
Yeah, but then Sam Bradford, what? He gets another bruise and has to have another
second bone bruise. You can't have 2 amputations. All right, Chris, stick around. Coming up, is Matt Ryan's legacy on the line this postseason? We'll talk about that next on First Things First. Back here with Chris Canty, we're talking about the bookends of the NFC playoffs. Eagles at the top, Falcons at the bottom. Despite that, Eagles are the underdogs in this one, at home no less. That's because of the loss of Eagles quarterback Carson Wentz. Regardless, Falcons quarterback Matt Ryan knows this won't be easy. He's looking to lead the Falcons team back to the Super Bowl. Take a listen.
I think we've done a good job. We're a tough group and a group that has a belief that, you know, regardless of how games shake out, we can go out there and find a way to win.
Chris, after what Matt Ryan went through last year with the Falcons and the way they lost that game, would anything shy of a Super Bowl win really be the difference for him? I mean, does he have to actually win the Super Bowl to change his reputation, to get that reputation back?
No, I think he has to win the Super Bowl to change the perception around who he is as a quarterback. He's already got the MVP on his resume. He's taken his team to a Super Bowl. Now, in much part, it's like the conversation that we have around Cam Newton. He's got to be able to win the Super Bowl to change the narrative around Matt Ryan and the Atlanta Falcons.
Career is very similar. Up and down, one spectacular year where they won the MVP, but in the Super Bowl. Now, Matty Ice, he didn't play bad in the Super Bowl. He just didn't win or hold the lead.
Well, Kyle Shanahan got away from running the football in the second half. Now, that's something that it seems like they've learned from because if you look at last week's game against the Rams, when they came out with that 16-play drive, although they didn't score a touchdown, they got the field goal, they pushed it to a 2-possession lead, and they ran the ball 12 times out of those 16 plays. So you see they have that concerted effort to run the football in the second half. I think that's who the Atlanta Falcons have to be because that complements their defense. Their defense has been lights out the last month of the regular season, and you saw it again in the wild card matchup against the Rams. That run game on offense has to keep that undersized defensive front off the field because we see that Atlanta Falcons defense can get after it when they're fresh. It's a fast, athletic defense so they can create a lot of problems for opposing offenses when they don't get worn down from being on the field too long. That's why it's important for the Falcons to run the ball. If they run the ball this week against the Philadelphia Eagles, they'll be in the NFC Championship game.
Matt Ryan, as far as his reputation goes, like winning a Super Bowl will absolutely change it. And if you're a quarterback and you win a Super Bowl and you have an MVP, you are on the list of potential Hall of Famer. Even if the rest of the resume doesn't quite stack up, there's one quarterback that has both and hasn't won it, and I know it, and I'll remember it later. But aside, everyone who's done that except for one guy has ended up making the Hall of Fame. So that's what Matt Ryan can do as far as his legacy goes. But
Rich Gannon?
What?
Is it Rich Gannon?
He didn't win the Super Bowl.
No, he didn't. He didn't win the Super Bowl, but he got an MVP.
Win the MVP and win the Super Bowl. It's one guy. I'll remember it in a moment. But regardless, I do want to be fair to Matt Ryan as far as, because he has a losing playoff record. Man, his defense is, this is the points given up in his 9 career playoff games. 30, 48, 24, 28, 28, 20, 21, 34, 13. This was the game against the Rams.
A lot like Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, absolutely right. And Aaron Rodgers, I believe, has a losing playoff record or a 500 playoff record. It's hard, by the way, to have a winning playoff record because if you're a really good team, you don't have a chance to even win your wild card game because you get a bye that round. Like Peyton Manning has a below 500 career playoff record. Like that, it's really hard to be well above 500 in the playoffs. But it is worth noting in his last 5 playoff games, where he is 3-2. 13 touchdowns, 1 interception, and a 124 rating. Like, he's been outstanding in his last 5 playoff games, even though, and 2 of those games, by the way, his team could have won. One was the NFC Championship game against San Francisco. They had him in the red zone to win it, and the other, obviously, was the Super Bowl.
But it's what the footnotes are. It's not only how you get to that record. How does his playoff record get to 5-6? All right? He had a 28-3 lead in the Super Bowl. That's right. All right? So if he didn't lose that one, he would already have a winning record in the playoffs, and he would have a Super Bowl. Now, you top that off where he went and beat the Rams, where a lot of people thought that they might be kind of that special pick coming out of the NFC. So they beat them in Los Angeles. Now you go to Philadelphia, your hometown, and you lose to Nick Foles. So not only will his record be 5-7, but you have these footnotes. 28-3 lead. He couldn't hold it. Regardless, blame it on the offensive coordinator, blame it on Freeman, not picking up a blitz, but they go on the quarterback's resume. They don't go on anyone else's resume. Oh, Nick Foles. Oh, he's lousy. Who lost to him? Matty Ice. So if you think that these little footnotes don't change the story, the numbers tell one story, but the footnotes, they help enhance or illuminate what the real story is.
Yeah, it's absolutely all on Matt Ryan right now. You're going into Philadelphia expected to be able to win this game. I mean, this is the first time I believe that the #1 seed in a conference is the underdog at home in the divisional round. So that speaks volumes about the expectations on this Atlanta Falcons team this weekend. If they go up to Philadelphia and they lose this game on Saturday, can you imagine what the storylines are going to be surrounding Matt Ryan and his career?
Right.
Because the expectations right now are that this team should be in the conference championship competing against the Saints or the Vikings. And right now, when you start looking at how the Eagles have been playing the last 3 weeks of the regular season with Nick Foles as the starter, with Nick Foles not having a completion beyond 20 yards downfield, the fact that he can't push the ball down the field, there's no way that the Philadelphia Eagles should be in a position where they can match points with the Falcons' offense.
Listen, the moment Carson Wentz went down, I said the Eagles' Super Bowl hopes are done. I don't think you can lose the MVP and still win the Super Bowl. But it is worth noting that Vegas says the Eagles are underdogs, but the smallest underdogs of the weekend. They're smaller underdogs than the New Orleans Saints are, and no one be shocked if the Saints win.
Yeah, but they're #1 seed.
No, I understand that, but the point that I'm trying to make is I don't want the audience to think that this game is like the Pats-Titans, where if the underdog wins, it's a shocking upset. Because of the quarterback discrepancy and because of the way the Eagles' offense looked at the last 2 weeks of the year, I think people say, oh, it'd be shocking if Philly won. Philly's at home with a good defense and a great running game. They absolutely can beat a Falcons team that needed to win the final week of the season just to make the postseason.
Yeah, but also we need to talk about other Eagles, though. I mean, we're putting everything on the quarterback, but this was a good football team. Zach Ertz, he's important in this game. Malcolm Jenkins, he's important. Jim Schwartz, the defensive coordinator, he's interviewed for a few coaching jobs. Now, Chris, you know, guys like to show their stuff. They typically don't blitz a lot, but in this game, because he's done a lot of interviews, do they blitz more?
They're going to have to be aggressive on the defensive side of the ball, because if you look at this team, and defense has carried them throughout the regular season, it's a top 5 defense. They create a lot of havoc. They're able to force a lot of turnovers. They got to get back to that formula if they want their team to have success. If your offense is struggling, defensively, you got to create short fields and extra possessions to help your quarterback out. That's something that they haven't done the last few weeks of the regular season.
Warriors and Clippers. Warriors have owned them the last few years, but on this night, no Steph Curry. He re-aggravated his ankle. No Klay Thompson. He's getting some rest. So the Clippers took advantage and scored more points than the other team did. They won 125-106 behind 50 points from Lou Williams. Kevin Durant had 40 of his own, reaching his 20,000-point mark. Only 4 to 4 players have done that. He spoke about Lou Williams' performance after the game.
He ordered 50-piece nuggets on us tonight, so you gotta, I mean, somebody scored 50 on you the way he did, you just gotta pay homage and move on.
Our spirit wasn't right, our energy wasn't right, and we weren't connected, and they were. You know, the Clippers were, they came in here probably insulted that, you know, we were resting Klay, and obviously Steph goes down, and so the game changes, and they came in and just kicked our ass.
Let's not mince words. Let's not beat around the bush. Let's get right to the point, Steve Kerr.
He's exactly right.
So I don't want to talk about the Warriors' spirit because you know a ton about basketball. I don't know nearly as much as you, and I know that the Warriors are going to be okay. What I do want to ask you about, though, is Steph Curry. This is now the second stretch in the last couple weeks that he has forced to sit out and deal with his ankle injury. It's something that's been bothering him for a while. How concerned are you about this?
So Steph was shooting around with a trainer or a coach and turned his ankle. It was not same ankle as the one that forced him to miss 13 games. Not significant enough to where he needed an MRI. So they don't think it's a serious injury like the last one was. But CeCe, this is the concern. The reality is with the Warriors, there are only 2 ways they are not going to win the title. One way is if they play the Cavs and LeBron plays the way he did the final 3 games of the series that the Cavs beat him for the entire series, which is almost impossible. Like, I mean, even by LeBron standards, LeBron would have to play 7 games of nearly flawless basketball for the Cavs to beat them if they're healthy. The other one is if they are dealing with injury. And as we saw, the Clippers last night barely were an NBA team. Lou Williams was awesome.
Yes.
DeAndre Jordan's a good player. Everyone else is a fringe G League type of talent. And it was a close game at halftime.
And, yeah, the Clippers had the chance, too, at halftime, because Durant had 25 at halftime. He was 25 points away from 20,000.
And he got it in the first half.
Yeah, and got that in the first half. So the Clippers, they could have easily just gone off and said, you know, it's just another game. Let's just let it go. But
right. And
Lou Williams had something to say about that.
Lou Williams is great. But here's the thing to know about what happened with the Warriors last night. Durant didn't score a typical 40. He scored 40 points on 18 shots and only 8 free throws. Like, that is, his efficiency last night was off the charts. And the Warriors still lost. Now, I know they didn't have Steph and they didn't have Klay. But this was another example, CeCe, as to the one concern for the Warriors, and it's a real concern now with Steph injuring that ankle a second time, even if it's a small injury, because that is the type of injury that you can repeatedly turn the ankle. This is the way they get got, is one of their guys misses a big series due to injury.
Well, I think that it's very interesting what Steve Kerr said, that the team just didn't have it. And the one thing that I would question, and one reason why I believe Kevin Durant is so comfortable in Golden State, I don't believe Kevin Durant's a leader. I mean, I'm talking about a vocal leader, a kind of in-your-face leader, kind of a rah-rah, kind of pick the team up. Like, you can watch him, and he can be a leader by example. He went out and got 25 points the first half. But they missed some other things that he, as a superstar, that he doesn't provide. And it was just interesting to hear the coach saying, now, I know when one of the superstars is out, Durant has been amazing. Like, he's played amazing.
Yeah.
But there's some other things that you have to do as a superstar that I don't believe are part of Kevin Durant's DNA. I still like him as a player, but it was fairly obvious that the team didn't have the type of juice. And it's kind of strange because he had a great game, but he still couldn't transfer that over to the rest of his teammates.
I'm curious what you mean. Like, what's that intangible? What's that thing that he could have done?
It's, say, for instance, if this was Kobe.
Okay.
Or if it was LeBron. Like, they bring some other type of energy. And the only reason why I say that is I watched the game, and also I heard Steve Kerr. He said we weren't there. Durant scored 40, so Durant was there. But that leadership that I've seen that Klay kind of silently have, and Klay is a very, very strong defensive presence. But one of your superstars is out, Steph, and Durant can't fill that void.
Right.
So Steve Kerr said it. So for me, I'm just trying to look at what he was talking about. And for me, looking at Durant, and one of the reasons why I believe he left OKC was because he's never going to be like the leader or kind of be the face of a franchise.
He doesn't want to have to fill that role. And he went to the one, he
went to the one point team where he doesn't have to.
One team where he doesn't have to.
Right.
Either team up with LeBron or team up with Steph, where you can be that good and you won't be the leader by default. Like, I mean, it's a big reason why he did what he did.
All right, so let's talk more about Durant and that milestone. He did become the 44th player in NBA history to score 20,000 points, the second fastest to do so, only behind LeBron James. Now, Durant's only 29 years old. All signs pointed to him playing at least another few weeks. Nick, is Durant in the conversation of best scorers of all time? Best scorers all time now?
Absolutely.
Yes.
I mean,
give me your list.
There's no question about it. Oh, I thank you for asking. I think Durant's one of the 5 best scorers in the history of the league. And my list isn't the gospel truth, but for my list, what's I think cool about it is all 5 guys do it so differently. So my 5, and you can pick the order, would be Kareem. How'd he do it? Well, he had the single most unstoppable shot in the history of the sport, the skyhook. Scored close 40,000 career points, something like that. My guess is 28,000 of those were on that damn skyhook. Also on the list, Wilt Chamberlain. So how does Wilt do it? Just a physical dominant force like we've never seen, really playing almost in the wrong era. Also on that list, of course, Michael Jordan. How did MJ do it? Every single way. Like, you go to the basket, mid-range, not as much of a three-point shooter, but everywhere inside the arc. Also on the list, top 5, LeBron. How's he do it? I'm going to put my head down and get to the bucket. Shoot threes when I need to, but I am just faster and bigger and stronger than you. And then Kevin Durant, how's he do it? A 7-footer that can shoot from 30 feet. Like, all 5 of those guys score differently, and that's with respect to Elgin Baylor and Kobe Bryant and Jerry West and Dirk Nowitzki and Rick Barry. But those are the 5. MJ, Kareem, LeBron, Durant, Wilt.
And you should know, they're not the 5 leading point scorers. That's your list.
No, but Wilt didn't play long enough. MJ is 4th all time. Kareem's number 1. LeBron's going to finish number 1, and Durant's going to finish somewhere in the top 5.
Yeah, I think it's hard, especially to put Wilt on the all-time scoring list because he had there was no part in time where one person had such a huge advantage over the opposition. So you can do it, but you need to put maybe
an asterisk.
An asterisk, an exclamation mark, just so people know. Kevin Durant, though, his ability to be able to score at whatever he is, 6'11", 7 foot, ability to be able to dribble the ball. I would be willing to debate, is he a better scorer than Kobe? He shoots a higher percentage. But Kobe, to me, was a better offensive player because I thought that he could do more things than Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant's an amazing offensive player, but he has no post-up game and barely ever plays above the rim. Now, his skill level, it's amazing. For to be able to handle the ball, to be able to shoot the ball away, not only from 3, but his intermediate jump shot also is very nice. Kobe can score more ways, and I thought was more dangerous as a scorer than Kevin Durant.
And I didn't mean to force you into a Durant-Kobe discussion, but you do think he's one of the best scorers ever. Correct?
Yes.
You wouldn't have him necessarily in the top 5 I did. But
well, I don't like to make lists as much, you know. But Kobe Bryant, to me, is the most terrifying offensive player that we've seen in the NBA in the last 20 years.
I think the other impressive part is that he's 29 years old. I mean, he's behind, what, LeBron James?
Just LeBron.
And LeBron, I know he only went to college for a year, but LeBron didn't go for a year, so he's a year behind him with that, which makes it even more impressive.
As far as games played to score 20,000, Kevin Durant did it in 7:37. LeBron did it in 7:26. So it's almost identical. It's almost identical.
I'm Jenna Wolfe, and thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Make sure to subscribe and tell your friends, family, and coworkers about the podcast, which, by the way, is available on iTunes and all your favorite podcast apps. You can catch a fresh new episode every Monday through Friday on FS1, starting at 6:30 a.m. Eastern, 3:30 a.m. Pacific. So long, everyone.